The look on my sister's face when I asked a single, simple question in front of 30 people at our family barbecue wasn't just shock. It was the frantic, blinking confusion of a computer that just had its entire hard drive wiped. It was the face of someone who realized they hadn't just made a mistake, they'd detonated a bomb they thought was a party popper. She was holding up a shiny set of new keys, beaming with triumph, and I just stood there, my paper plate of potato salad suddenly feeling very heavy, and calmly asked, "Ashley, when you and Mom and Dad went behind my back to the estate lawyer, did any of them happen to mention the heirloom addendum in Grandpa's will?" The silence that followed was so complete, you could hear the charcoal crackling in the grill. Yeah, that silence was worth everything. But let me back up. This whole mess didn't start at a barbecue. It started 9 years ago with a promise. My grandparents' house wasn't a mansion. It was a simple 2-story colonial with navy blue shutters and a porch swing that groaned just right. But to me, it was the most magical place on earth. It was the smell of Grandma's baking permanently baked into the drywall. It was the yard where Grandpa taught me how to throw a baseball and the garage where he let me help him fix the lawnmower, which mostly meant I just handed him wrenches. Every notch on the doorframe marking my height, every scuff on the hardwood floor, was a part of my story. When I was 20 and they were getting on in years, we had a serious talk on that porch. They were worried about what would happen to the house. They couldn't stand the thought of some stranger tearing it down to build a soulless gray box. I looked them both in the eye and told them I'll buy it. I swear I'll work as hard as I can, I'll save every penny, and I'll buy it from you. Just give me time. Grandpa, this tough old guy who rarely showed emotion, got a little misty-eyed. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "That's all I ever wanted to hear." And so it began. The Great Savings Plan. I was 20 years old. I calculated what I'd need for a 20% down payment on the house's estimated value. The number was daunting. It was Mount Everest for a kid making just over minimum wage at a coffee shop. But I was determined. I moved into the cheapest apartment I could find with 2 roommates. My car was a 15-year-old rust bucket that sounded like a dying lawnmower. I worked my regular job from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then I picked up shifts delivering pizzas from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. My diet consisted of ramen, coffee, and sheer, unadulterated will. Every single paycheck, before I even paid rent, I transferred a set amount into a high-yield savings account I labeled Grandma's House. Watching that balance tick up, dollar by painful dollar, was the only thing that kept me going. I missed out on vacations with friends. I turned down countless nights out. My life was a monotonous cycle of work, sleep, and cheap pasta. But in my head, I wasn't in my crappy little apartment. I was on that porch swing, hearing the ghosts of summer evenings past. My sister, Ashley, is 2 years older than me. And to put it mildly, we are built differently. While I was meticulously planning my future, Ashley was living in the now. And the now was always funded by Mom and Dad. Her college was paid for. Her first car was a graduation gift. When she wanted to move into a trendy downtown apartment, they covered her security deposit and first 3 months' rent. She was the brilliant, sparkling one. I was the quiet, responsible one. In my family's eyes, she was a show pony and I was a workhorse. And you don't hang medals on a workhorse. She thought my savings plan was hilarious. "Oh my God, you're still doing that," she'd say at family dinners. "It's just an old house. Why are you wasting your 20s being a hermit? You should get a real estate agent and buy a cute condo. Mom and Dad would probably help you with the down payment." She said it with this breezy, dismissive tone, as if the 9 years of blood, sweat, and tears I was planning were just a quirky hobby, like collecting stamps. My parents would just smile weakly and say, "Now, Ashley, your sister has a goal." That's nice. They never defended me. They never acknowledged the scale of what I was doing. To them, Ashley's life was the default, and mine was a weird, slightly embarrassing deviation. The first real crack in the foundation appeared about 5 years in. Ashley, armed with a business degree our parents had paid for, landed a high-paying marketing job. The first thing she did was buy a brand-new, bright red luxury sedan. She made a point of parking it right in front of my clunker when she came to visit. She'd jingle her keys and say things like, "Ugh, can you believe the interest rates right now?" It's so expensive to be successful. It was a constant, low-level campaign of psychological warfare. Every achievement of hers was framed as a subtle criticism of my life. I'd be talking about picking up an extra shift, and she'd sigh dramatically and talk about how she was just so exhausted from her company's retreat in Napa Valley. She was making my dream feel small. But I just kept my head down and kept saving. The numbers in my bank account were my shield. Then, 2 years ago, the inevitable happened. We lost Grandma. A year after that, Grandpa joined her. It was gut-wrenching. Walking through their empty house, a house that was always so full of life and warmth, felt like a physical blow. The silence was deafening. After the funeral, my parents, my sister, and I sat in the living room to discuss the estate. It was simple. Everything was to be split 50-50 between Ashley and me, including the proceeds from the sale of the house. This was my moment. I took a deep breath and said, okay, I want to be the one to buy it. I've been saving for this. I'm almost there. I have almost the entire down payment ready. I just need a little more time to get the mortgage pre-approval in order. My dad nodded. Of course, sweetie. We know this has always been your plan. The house should stay with you. My mom chimed in, yes, your grandfather would have wanted that. I looked at Ashley. She was staring at her phone, scrolling through Instagram, but she had a tight little smirk on her face. She just shrugged and said, whatever. As long as I get my half of the market value, I don't care what you do. It seemed too easy. The relief I felt was immense. They understood. They were on my side. For the first time, I felt like my sacrifice was being seen. Oh, what a fool I was. Over the next year, I went into overdrive. I picked up even more shifts, sold anything I owned of value, and finally, 3 months ago, I hit my number. I had the full 20% down payment. I cried. I sat on the floor of my apartment, looking at the number on my banking app, and I just sobbed with relief. 9 years. 9 years of my life had led to this moment. I called my dad, my voice shaking with excitement. Dad, I did it. I have the money. I have the down payment. I can go to the bank on Monday and get pre-approved. We can finally do this. The response I expected was joy. What I got was weird. Oh, wow, honey. That's great, he said, his voice hesitant. That's really fantastic. You know, the housing market is in a really weird place right now. Maybe it's best to just hold off for a month or two. Let things settle. There's no rush. A cold feeling started to creep up my spine. No rush? Dad, I've been rushing for 9 years. The plan was always to do this as soon as I had the money. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, he said a little too quickly. We think it's a big decision. Let's not be hasty. This was the first massive, blaring red flag. My parents, who had watched me sacrifice my entire youth for this single goal, were telling me to be less hasty. It made no sense. Then, the weirdness escalated. I started noticing things. Ashley would be on the phone with my mom, and they'd both go quiet as soon as I walked into the room. My sister, who had never shown an ounce of interest in home maintenance, started asking me strange questions. Hey, do you remember what Grandpa said about the property taxes on the house? And did they ever get that weird leak in the basement fixed? I confronted my mom. What's going on with Ashley? Why is she suddenly so interested in the house? My mom waved her hand dismissively, avoiding my eyes. Oh, you know your sister. She's just curious. A friend of hers is looking at houses in the area. The lies were so lazy, so transparent. They weren't even trying. It felt like they were building a wall around me, brick by brick, and I was the only one who couldn't see the blueprint. And that brings us to the barbecue. It was a classic 4th of July party. The whole extended family was there, aunts, uncles, cousins. The air smelled of cut grass and grilling burgers. I was actually starting to relax, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. Then, Ashley stood up, clinking a fork against her beer bottle. Can I have everyone's attention for a second? She announced, a brilliant, predatory smile on her face. My mom and dad stood right behind her, looking like guilty accomplices. I have some really, really exciting news, she continued, her voice dripping with fake sentimentality. I know how much this family loves Grandma and Grandpa's house, and how important it was to all of us that it stay in the family. She paused for dramatic effect, her eyes locking with mine for a split second. Well, I've been working on a little secret project with Mom and Dad, and I'm so happy to announce that I bought it. The deal closed yesterday. She held up a single, shiny brass key on a new keychain. The world went silent. It was like a movie scene where a bomb goes off, and all you can hear is a high-pitched ringing. My ears were ringing. My aunt started clapping, then my uncle, and soon the whole yard was applauding. And I was just standing there, frozen, watching my sister hug my parents, all three of them playing their roles in this perfectly staged betrayal. She didn't just steal my dream. She stole it, gift-wrapped it, and presented it to me as a public spectacle. She wanted to watch my heart break in front of an audience. That's when something inside me snapped. The years of quiet resentment, of being overlooked, of biting my tongue, it all just evaporated. And in its place was a cold, hard, diamond-like clarity. The hurt was still there, but it was being eclipsed by a pure, righteous anger. I let her have her moment. I watched her soak in the congratulations. I watched my parents look at me with pathetic, pleading eyes, silently begging me not to make a scene. So I didn't make a scene. I made a statement. I calmly walked through the crowd until I was standing right in front of her. She looked at me, her smile faltering slightly. She was expecting tears. She was expecting me to run off crying. She wasn't expecting the dead calm look in my eyes. And that's when I asked the question. Ashley, when you and Mom and Dad went behind my back to the estate lawyer, did any of them happen to mention the heirloom addendum in Grandpa's will? Ashley's face went blank. The what? My parents froze. My dad's face went from pale to ghostly white. I pulled out my phone and opened a file. It was a scanned PDF. The heirloom addendum, I repeated, my voice steady and clear, loud enough for everyone to hear. You see, Grandpa was a smart man. He knew I was saving, but he also knew, well, he knew you, Ashley. And he knew our parents have a blind spot when it comes to you. I continued, so he had his lawyer, Mr. Henderson, draw up a special addendum to his will. I have a copy right here, the one he gave me years ago. It states that I, his granddaughter, have the exclusive right of first refusal to purchase the property for a fixed price, the appraised value from the year we made our agreement, provided I had saved a 20% down payment in a dedicated account before my 30th birthday. I paused and looked around at the silent, staring faces. My 30th birthday is next week. And as of 3 months ago, I have the full down payment. I have the bank statements to prove it. I have emails where I informed Mom and Dad, the executors of the estate, that I had met the conditions. I turned my full attention to my sister, whose smug smile had been replaced by a slack-jawed horror. So when you, Mom, and Dad went to that lawyer and signed those papers, you did something very, very illegal. Mom and Dad committed what's called breach of fiduciary duty. And you, Ashley, knowingly participated in a fraudulent transaction. The sale is void. Utterly and completely. I let the words hang in the air. You didn't just buy a house, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. You bought a lawsuit. And, trust me, after 9 years of saving every last cent, I have become very, very good with money. I can afford to drag this out in court for as long as it takes. Can you? The chaos that erupted was biblical. Ashley started screaming, not words, just this high-pitched shriek of pure rage and panic. She wasn't screaming at me, she was screaming at our parents. You told me it was fine. You told me you handled it. My dad looked like he was going to have a heart attack. My mom burst into tears, babbling about how they just didn't want anyone to be upset and how Ashley had been so convincing that she could get a better mortgage rate than me and would pay me back fairly. The excuses were so pathetic, so transparently weak, that it was almost comical. The party was over. People were awkwardly grabbing their kids and their cooler bags, trying to escape the emotional blast zone. I just stood there and watched the empire of lies my family had built crumble into dust in the span of 5 minutes. The aftermath was exactly as messy as you'd imagine. Ashley hired a lawyer, who promptly told her she didn't have a leg to stand on and that fighting it would be financial suicide. She had 2 options. Either sell the house back to the estate at a massive loss, eating all the closing costs, taxes, and fees herself, so I could legally purchase it under the addendum's terms, or face a lawsuit from me that she would almost certainly lose. My parents tried to mediate. They called me, crying, begging me to be the bigger person. They wanted me to let Ashley keep the house and they'd pay me my share. I laughed. A cold, bitter laugh. My share? You think this was about money? I didn't just work 2 jobs for 9 years for money. I did it for that porch swing. I did it for the memories in that garage. I did it for a promise I made to Grandma and Grandpa. You sold that for a quick and easy solution because you couldn't bear to tell your favorite daughter no, so no. I will not be the bigger person. I was the bigger person for 29 years. That's over now. In the end, reality won. The sale was voided. The house went back to the estate. And I walked into Mr. Henderson's office with my meticulously organized financial records, and I bought my home. The price was laughably low compared to the current inflated market, exactly as Grandpa had intended. I haven't spoken to my sister since the barbecue. I hear she had to move back in with my parents to recover financially from the disaster. My relationship with my parents is broken. They text me, "I love you and we miss you," but they've never once given me a real, sincere apology for the depth of their betrayal. They're sorry they got caught, not sorry for what they did. So here I am. I'm writing this from the living room of my house. My house. The floors are scuffed, the paint is chipping in a few places, and the porch swing still groans just right. It's a lonely victory in a way. I got my dream, but I lost a family. But then I realize, a family that would do that to you wasn't really a family to begin with. I have my integrity. I have my home. And I have the peace of knowing I earned it.